Hi everyone, my name is Jenna Love and I'm a clinical psychologist. I work in the Red Cell Pain Management and Psychology Service at St George's Hospital. What I'd like to do in this film is just give a little bit of an overview to mindfulness. I know that lots of people might be interested in trying mindfulness, or you might have already tried it. And I think sometimes I was lucky when I started learning mindfulness that I had a fantastic teacher and a group of people that I learnt along with. And whilst that's, potentially a really helpful way of doing it, it's not the only way, and some people like to try things out at home. So I thought it might be helpful just to maybe have a little bit of a brief introduction to mindfulness and talk about a few sort of things to hold in mind as you start to experiment and practice with it. So I think lots of us have heard of mindfulness because it is a skill that can be really helpful for managing difficult times. It can be helpful for managing anxiety, low mood, pain. There's really good evidence to support its use in things like reducing blood pressure, improving sleep. And so it's very kind of exciting to think about. Thinking about the idea of, well, what is mindfulness? Let's start there. So sometimes people talk a lot when they talk about mindfulness about paying attention or being present, and you think, well, what does that even mean, being present? So the way I like to think about it is that often we get caught up in what we might think of as autopilot. So we are, if I walk the same way to the shops, then often I'm not really paying attention to what's going on around me. I'm often sort of doing that in a very automatic, familiar way. And this can happen with our actions, particularly, a meal that we cook or a route that we drive, we can go onto autopilot. But it also can happen with our thoughts. So you might have had this experience where you realise that suddenly you are thinking about what somebody said at a party 2 years ago, or you're thinking about how you're going to manage a situation that's not even happened yet. And you might not even really have noticed that that was where your mind started going. And yet, once you realise it, you can see that your thoughts have been sort of chewing over that and thinking about it. And that's a really nice example of what can happen with our thoughts. They can go into autopilot and they go to places that we haven't necessarily expected them to go to or invited them to go to. And what I think is really helpful about mindfulness is that then it gives you the opportunity to stop, to notice that, and to start making choices about, well, do I want to carry on thinking about that thing that happened 2 years ago? Or is it more helpful to focus on what's happening right now? And of course, that's something that we all do. That's not unique to mindfulness. But I think for me, particularly, what mindfulness has helped me to do, because it helps to sort of focus on where my thoughts go, to pay attention to that and to make choices about what I want to do sort of during the practices of mindfulness, then it's like a skill. It helps me to practice that skill. So I often think about mindfulness as an approach to life that we practice through at specific times. So that might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a day where we sit down somewhere quiet and just practice, often by something simple like focusing on our breath. We don't need any specific equipment to do it. It's not a religion. And it's not, I think, probably one of the main things that I'd like you to hold in mind. It took me quite a few years to really get this when I started learning mindfulness, is that I think lots of us think that we should be able to clear our mind. We should be able to be quiet. We should be able to sort of really, all sorts of different phrases that we hear, that we should be able to become completely calm. And I think I got caught up for quite a long time in thinking that I should be doing that if I was doing it properly. And so I'd really strongly encourage you to just hold in mind that often isn't the case. We have really busy minds. They chatter away. They take us here, there and everywhere. And so it's not expected to have a quiet mind during mindfulness, but all that we do, or I say all that we do, the important thing that we do is once we realise that our mind has gone somewhere, it's starting, rather than focusing on the breath, we're thinking about what to have for dinner that night, or what work we've got to do the next day, or worrying about, you know, a bill that we've got to pay, that we just notice that. There we go again, thinking. Do I want to carry on with that thought right now? Or is it okay to just let it go and come back and focus on the breath? I might need to come back to that. I might need to decide what I'm going to have for dinner. But right now, I'm just going to stay focused on the breath. So how to start? A few ideas about how to start. There's lots of different apps and recordings and things that you can get to help you support with mindfulness. There's at least one video on our website, and there will be more with time, where you can just follow along with my voice if that's helpful to have an introduction to mindfulness. I think things to bear in mind are, often it's helpful to try and do it somewhere quiet, to have a private space where you won't be interrupted. But again, you know, that's not always possible. And sometimes just being aware of the noise, and when we're distracted with the noise, is part of the practice. Thinking about, you know, sort of, it is a skill. So if you're sort of practicing with a particular, something that you want it to help with, you know, an exam, a presentation, a scan, something like that, then it's often helpful to start sooner rather than later. Start at a time when you feel quite calm, if you can. But anything that you do is going to be helpful. Think, when you're practicing, just hold in mind this idea that we always have choices. And that's something that I really value about mindfulness, and it's something that I encourage you to take with you into your mindfulness practice. That if the person who's guiding or leading the meditation suggests that you might want to close your eyes, then, and that doesn't feel right for you, if sometimes people might find that they, you know, can get sort of strange sensations, or they feel a bit dizzy when they close their eyes, then know that you always can make that choice. So if you choose to not close your eyes, or you choose to open your eyes having closed them, to know that that's okay, and that's you taking care of yourself. That's not you failing to do the mindfulness. That's not that you're not able to do it right. It's, you know, if the instruction is that this is something that you might want to try lying down, but lying down is really painful for you, and it's just not the right thing for you that day, then you make the choice about what's helpful. And if there's anything that makes you feel worried about experimenting or trying with mindfulness, if you perhaps have a history of trauma, or if you've had significant mental health difficulties in the past, absolutely check it out with your GP, speak to your GP, speak to, if you have a therapist or a psychologist or a counsellor, speak to them. Or if you're somebody who's known to our service, and you're very welcome to contact us with any questions. But I think the most important thing I would say is just try and have fun with it. Experiment with different types of leaders, different people guiding the meditations. See what suits you, see what type of meditations you prefer. And, you know, don't expect it to be a magic cure. Don't expect it to suddenly sort of make all the challenges in life feel a lot easier. But I really do think that, certainly I can only speak from my personal experience, that for me it has been something that I've actually been involved with now for over 10 years. It feels like a really valuable part of my life, and it's something that I come back to regularly. So really hope that this has been a little bit helpful, and look forward to hearing how you get on. Take care.